Here's the middle grade 2024 Toyota Land Cruiser. It's not the base Land Cruiser 1958, and it's not the top tier first edition. And since this is the middle grade Toyota Land Cruiser, it also has the middle grade price, starting at $62,000. This one with the roof rack and the paint and all the other add-ons with delivery, tack on another $10,000 on top of that. And that is a steep price, but considering what you get in this vehicle, this might just be the perfect everyday ride. This is a smaller Land Cruiser than the last 200 series Land Cruiser available in North America. This is known as the Prado in overseas markets, so that explains the cheaper price tag and also the smaller footprint compared to the last Land Cruiser. This is 4.4 inches and 1.2 inches narrower. The power plant is now a 2.4 liter turbocharged 4-cylinder engine with a hybrid. This is called the iForce Max, and this is the only power plant available, but it's a powerful one and pretty torquey. So 326 horsepower and 465 pound-feet of torque. There's a 48 horsepower electric motor that's integrated with the 8-speed automatic transmission. Now this is less peak horsepower, but has more torque than the 5.7 liter V8 of the 200 series Land Cruiser. This is also about 700 pounds lighter than the larger and older Land Cruiser, so better power to weight ratio. This feels a lot more nimble and scrappier than the old Land Cruiser. This new Toyota Land Cruiser might look very similar to the new Lexus GX and also the upcoming Toyota 4Runner, and that's because this is riding on the TNGA-F platform. Now I've driven the Lexus GX already, and you can see that video up in the link in the corner, and this Land Cruiser drives almost exactly like that GX 550 Overtrail, with the exception of the GX's 10-speed automatic transmission and the 3.4 liter twin-turbo V6. That car results in a slightly better and smoother ride than this Land Cruiser, and it rides like a Lexus, of course. But design-wise, everything between the wheels looks very similar to the Lexus GX, but everything from the front clip and forward, and from the rear end to the back, it's very unique to this Land Cruiser. I love the front end of this Toyota Land Cruiser, and you can only get these rectangular headlights on this middle grade Land Cruiser. I love how it somewhat kept the features of the Lexus GX, those bumps on the hood. So from the driver's perspective, it's fairly easy to place this vehicle because those bumps trace where your tires are, and off-roading on this thing is a little bit easier because of that. This is a full-time four-wheel drive vehicle, so of course it has a center diff, but this one also has a lockable rear diff and a lockable center diff, and this one has a stabilizer bar defeat. So when you're off-roading, this can give you better off-road traction, and when you're on-road, you reattach the stabilizer bar so that you have better on-road stability. This sway bar disconnect system, or SDM, this one is called EKDSS on the Lexus GX 550. Now previously, that system was completely hydraulic, but it's now all electric. One of my favorite exterior features of this Land Cruiser is the two-tone paint. This one comes in the Heritage Blue for the body and the Grayscape roof. This color scheme is $350 extra, and it can only be had on the Land Cruiser and the first edition. This gives you that FJ Cruiser vibe, and the name of the paint alone, Heritage Blue, is an FJ Cruiser color. I do love the rectangular headlights of this design. This is a nod to the FJ62. Pretty cool design. Between the circular and the rectangular headlights, I think I prefer this one better. And then down below you get the rigid fog lights, and this can turn from white to yellow. Everything is boxy and rectangular on the front end. The wheel arches are nicely contoured out and look muscular. The lowered belt line from the front and rear windows, and this gives you better visibility looking outside the car. And then you have the steeply raked windshield design, which I just love the look of that. But after driving this for about a week, I've killed so many bugs on this windshield, which makes me wonder if this is going to hold up to all those rock chips and cracks. Now, hopefully, because it is a smaller windshield compared to other cars with a more shallow angle, hopefully that will reduce the overall cost of a replacement. Fingers crossed. And then at the back, I just love this liftable glass. This is just like the Lexus GX. So if you're parked against something real tight back here, you don't have to open up the entire liftgate. You could just open up this section and you could still reach for the items inside. But if you do have the room, this powered liftgate is pretty nice because that opens up to 37.5 cubic feet of space behind the second row. I do love the exterior design of this Land Cruiser. It looks more functional and purposeful than the GX. The Lexus GX looks pretty nice driving down the road, but I think this one is going to look more at home on a trail like this. I also love how that roof rack completes the look on this one. and it's very functional, of course. So which one do you think looks better, this Land Cruiser or the Lexus GX? Or the upcoming Toyota 4Runner. Now let's talk about the interior, and this Land Cruiser looks very modern. Starting with the 12.3-inch touchscreen, this has Toyota's new multimedia system. This is the system they've been slowly introducing to all of the new Toyotas, and it is a big improvement over the old systems you find in Toyotas from 5 to 6 years ago. Now this has built-in wireless Apple CarPlay and wireless Android Auto, and it has a fairly smart voice assistant system, which is super helpful. But in my opinion, there is still some ways this thing can be improved. Right now you have to toggle between the phone, the stereo system, and then the navigation and the settings. There's no one single convenient multi-page view that you can get out of systems like Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. I realize that's a very minor gripe, but there's still things that can be improved in this car. Looking ahead, we have a 12.3-inch digital instrument cluster. This is a very nice display. And then the rest of this interior might look a bit more high-tech than your stock Land Cruiser, because this comes with the $4,600 premium package upgrade. So this gets the 14-speaker JBL stereo sound system, not the standard 10-unit ones. This gets the Cool Box, which you could cool drinks in this armrest. And then you have a wireless charger. There's a heads-up display. There's this power moonroof. And there's also a bunch of other driving assistance systems, which works really nicely, especially if you plan on taking this on some long road trips. And you could tell this has those advanced driving assistance systems because of this hump over here. This tracks your eyes. And if you're wearing polarized sunglasses, the system might think that you have your eyes closed. Now, as for the second row, this is riding on the TNGA-F platform, which means that this vehicle has been designed to fit 3 rows, but this Land Cruiser is just a 2-row vehicle. But you can still see the remnants of the third row, like the cup holders, the USB-C chargers, and then the vents up top and the grab handle. Those can actually be great features if you plan on overlanding this car, but if you don't know anything about that, you might be a little bit confused as to why those things are still there. Second row space might be a little bit tight. There's 26.7 inches of legroom back here, and I'm 5'8", and there's just a little bit of headroom left over. Now, if you have 5 people sitting in this car, 3 on the back row, it might get a little bit snug. Now, as I mentioned earlier, there's 37.5 cubic feet of space with the second row in the upright position. Now, this is a hybrid, so therefore they needed to package the battery somewhere, so they've decided to put it underneath where the third row normally would sit. Now, the downside there is that even though this has a flat floor, just take a look at how much space could have been gained without the hybrid battery. And that's the one benefit of going with the Lexus GX. You have the 3.4-liter twin-turbo V6 instead of this 2.4-liter 4-cylinder turbocharged engine with the hybrid system. With the hybrid, that battery does take up space, but fortunately, there is some storage space fore and aft of the battery, although it is fairly small. Now, as for the driving experience, I feel like the power on the Land Cruiser is pretty sufficient. It feels more nimble and powerful compared to the older Land Cruiser, and that makes sense because this is a much smaller platform than the previous one. It doesn't have that 5.7-liter V8 power, but it does have more torque, and with the hybrid's electric motor, it also gives you that nicer low-end torque. Off-roading capability is pretty fantastic for your typical unimproved road, just like this one. So my experience with this Land Cruiser has been limited to this type of road. I will be going on an off-road trip with this car in the future with Toyota and with my off-roading buddies, of course, so I'll have a better assessment then. I'll just say that for now, that Toyota is making some of the best off-roading vehicles right now, and these new TNGA-F trucks and SUVs can really eat up a lot of the tough trails that you might encounter. I do love the mileage on this SUV. With that 4-cylinder turbocharged hybrid power, you can get 23 combined miles per gallon on this thing. But unlike traditional hybrids where you get better performance in the city, this one nets 22 miles per gallon in the city and 25 miles per gallon in the highway. That's pretty incredible mileage for a full-time 4-wheel drive vehicle, but the downside here is that premium fuel only. And that's one of the reasons why this SUV is a perfect daily driver. You can still use it for your commutes without completely setting your wallet on fire. And then on the weekends, you can take this capable vehicle off-road. And the ride quality isn't bad at all. It definitely drives like a body-on-frame SUV, but it's a big improvement over the previous platform. The chassis feels a lot more rigid, so there's generally less flexing, and then your suspension can do the bulk of the work. Basically, the more rigid your chassis, the better the ride quality will be. I love that this Land Cruiser is now in a smaller and cheaper package. This one starts at $55,000 for the base Land Cruiser 1958. This one starts at just under $62,000, but with all of the add-ons, this balloons all the way up to $72,000. That is a steep bill, but it's still cheaper than the older Land Cruiser, so this should be more manageable for the masses. The size is much more useful to drive around town, and it is a lot easier to park. And even though it has a 4-cylinder engine, it does come with a turbocharger and the hybrid system, so this thing is no weakling. This thing has some grunt. And then of course it's a full-time 4-wheel drive with the 2-speed transfer case, so you could really generate a lot of torque out of this thing. And I love how you're not going to pay through the roof with fuel costs. That's the one benefit of that 4-cylinder hybrid system. I think this will make for a great daily driver, and if you've been driving around in a 4Runner and looking for something to step up to, this is a great choice. And since you're still watching this video, check out my video review of the 2024 Lexus GX. I think you're going to find a lot of similarities with that car and this one. And I want to thank you so much for watching all the way till the end. My name is Hanson, and this is the 2024 Toyota Land Cruiser, and I'll see you in the next one.